Welcome in and Merry Christmas Eve to all on a beautiful day in Nashville, Tennessee. Hopefully you are somewhere enjoying your time with your friends and your family and your loved ones and getting ready for the arrival of Old St. Nick. Got the crew here today. Kayla Anderson dressed very festively.
Yes.
100%. Also rocking the sequin to Michael Jackson model boots. I don't know if those were a Christmas gift, but if so, I hope that I receive a similar pair for myself. We'll get to the boys coming up here. We'll get to your calls if you want to join us. 615-737-1045. Lee Company always putting this show on. The Titans trust their home stadium to Lee Company to tackle their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical problems, and they can protect your home too. Your next play is to visit LeeCompany.com. Lee Company, all you need. Well, Titans need a victory drop down the chimney today from Old St. Nick. I'll just ask you guys off the top, optimism level on, again, a beautiful day in downtown Nashville, a Christmas day, a depleted Titans roster, but, miracles happen at Christmas. Could we see one today?
There are miracles that happen at Christmas time, and Merry Christmas to y'all out there. So the good thing is it is nice out here, and it's supposed to be like 65 degrees. It's unbelievable that we're talking about this type of weather here at the end of December. But the difficult news, unfortunately for Titans fans, is not going to be a lot of guys out there in terms of your key players that you're used to seeing every Sunday.
Nope.
We saw the long list that Mike Vrabel said on Friday in terms of out, and then you saw the final injury report come out. So obviously Jeffrey Simmons, he is on IR now. Amani Hooker on IR. Let's see, who else should we add to the list from last week even? I mean, it just kind of keeps on piling up. Will Levis doesn't look like he's playing today. It's going to be Ryan Tannehill, and that's kind of the least of my worries is Ryan Tannehill taking over.
Sure.
If anything, I think that's what I feel the most comfortable about because he's played in this offense before. So.
Kirby is mine. Yeah. Well, for me is would these guys be on the IR if they were still in playoff contention? And we're talking about Hooker, Simmons, and the guys go, the list goes on some of the guys anyway who were contributors. So that's always kind of interesting. So this is the form of what I've been talking about on the Blaine and Mickey show is this is how you do tanking right here. You play backups, you put starters, guys who are nicked up, and if we were in the playoff hunt, they'd still probably play. And that's not all those guys, but it's a few of them. This shows you don't want to evaluate where they're at. They know they're out of playoff contention, so they're evaluating players, and maybe you sometimes find not only a key starter, but maybe also a backup and depth on your team, and then that way when you're moving forward in free agency and the draft, you kind of got a better idea and a better feel of where you're at in different position groups. So that's kind of how I see this game as far as, the Seahawks. I think they're a team that has a little bit more to play for, but if they don't make the playoffs, I don't think that's a big deal. I think their fan base and everybody down there probably thinks they're going to get a franchise quarterback with Geno with one more year and then still kind of maybe look at drafting your quarterback this year. So they have a really good, solid team. Probably not as, injury trouble as much as the Titans, especially with all their IR guys. But this is a team that is coming off a big high, beating Eagles, Monday night, so short week. I think they came in on Friday. Actually, I'm not sure, but I think one of the guys told me they came in on Friday. So it'll be interesting to see how well they play going across country on a short week. So always curious about games like that. A lot of players now are speaking up about maybe these 3 preseason games and 17, all these international games. And even I think I heard A.J. Brown, for what it's worth, he made a comment, which I would not have done, but about Monday Night Football and, how that's really tough on them then coming back on a Sunday, which we all know Monday Night Football all started. You probably know better than me the creation of how Monday night came about. So I think a lot of teams are having some injury issues, and let alone at the quarterback, which the Titans do too. Lucky for them, they have a former starter who lost his job through injury, not because of his play. So, I think we're in good hands, as you said, Kayla, at quarterback. So, it's going to be an interesting game. See how much the Titans are into it, or do they play really hard, and then they just have some young players who make some mistakes here or there who haven't been out there playing, and then, Seahawks win a close one. That's probably how I see it.
Buck Reising, do you feel like that Christmas magic can bring this tale to a very happy ending today for the Tennessee Titans?
I mean, it's possible. There's weirder results all over the place in football.
The time.
I was at one Monday night. I was there.
Yes,
you
were.
I've seen weird stuff this season. It's possible. A couple. I guess that was last season, towards the end, right before the Jags game. with the Dallas Cowboys here at Nissan Stadium, where they had a bunch of guys who were either resting or out for that particular game. Kevin Byard played in that game, but for the most part, it was largely a collection of backup players that was out there for this team, and they made it competitive. Now, KB had a couple of picks in that game, made huge plays to try and keep him in it. They ultimately weren't able to come back and win late, but Dobbs gave him a chance in that opportunity. Today it'll be Ryan Tannehill. They'll have the veteran quarterback with Will Levis continuing to progress with his ankle situation. So, yeah, I mean, it's possible. I'm looking for something today. I mean, I don't know what the vibe is going to be. But this is potentially Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill's last game at Nissan Stadium starting together. I think there's plenty of storylines to kind of have a lot of interest in this one, despite the lack of playoff contention.
As you mentioned, all you guys, Will Levis had been listed as questionable all week. A report yesterday from Jeremy Fowler, pretty much affirming what we all see with our own eyes. It certainly looked like Ryan Tannehill or somebody else would get the nod. Mike Vrabel said this week that it would be Ryan Tannehill. There was a camp of people out there who thought, why not just let Malik have the reins for the last 3 games? Mike Vrabel, as Blaine said, though, Nostra Blaine said, he's not going to do that. He wants to win the game, and Tannehill gives him the best chance. And he immediately, when asked, said, oh, no, Ryan's the backup. He'll play. Ryan Tannehill's going to play quarterback.
Yes, and listen, that's what you need to do to make sure that these players who are going to be out there starting alongside him, playing alongside him, know that they have the best chance to win a game, that it's not just actually an exhibition game. Because if you're going to treat it that way, I mean, understandably, you're bringing a lack of, I don't want to say a lack of seriousness to it, but there has to be stakes, even though there's no real playoff stakes. So Ryan Tannehill gives them the best chance to win. I know it checks a lot of boxes for fans to have Malik play, because you would love to see if he's made any progress since the last time that we saw him in Baltimore. We have no idea what these guys really look like in practice, other than we see Stretch and individual for a couple of minutes 3 days a week. And Titans fans want to know if they have a backup quarterback situation that's viable on the roster. I think that as an organization, and they would bring in competition anyway, but I think as an organization they would prefer a veteran backup behind a rookie like Will Levis heading into next year. And I don't know what that means for the future of Malik Willis, but whether it's to improve any theoretical trade value that he might have, whether it's to, I mean, honestly, if he goes out there and underperforms and it improves your draft position, I know a lot of people would look at that as a favorable, fans would look at that as a favorable result as well. But just because it checks boxes for fans doesn't mean that the coaching staff and the players and everybody else who put so much work into this on a week-by-week basis still want the best chance to win a football game.
Sure.
Yeah, no surprise that Ryan Tannehill was named the starter. And I think when Mike Vrabel had that short answer of, well, Ryan's been the backup, right, since Will Levis has taken over, that's what we expect him to be now, stepping up as the starter. And when you look at Ryan Tannehill and his situation right now, like, it's a little bit difficult because, you're going back out there. And, by the way, the guy that's now sitting and trying to get healed up also is out because of an ankle injury, which you were out for. And that was brought up earlier this week, and Will Levis said, kind of a weird thing there.
It's a theme here, yeah.
It is a theme. But you are, playing behind an offensive line that has been not great this season, who has allowed, how many sacks? 50? What 50. Are we at now? 50?
They're 50.
Yeah. So with Ryan, he's a pro, though. Like, he's going to have to do his job because he's actually looking for a job next year. And guess what? The way that we've seen the quarterbacks shuffle this year and the backups, somebody's going to need somebody at some point. And I feel like Ryan Tannehill still has enough in him to either be a viable backup or maybe potentially at some place become a starter at some point. So I'm sure he wants to put something on tape as well. And I like the point that Buck made, though. You want to see the continued development of the rookies, the younger players on this team. You got to have somebody, at least offensively, that can get the ball to you and allow you to do that.
Yeah, well, we're talking about rookies developing. Not a lot of rookies out there in the skill position, but definitely some young players at the offensive line. So no question about it. But you still want to, see what the playmakers will do. I'm real interested in not only that Tannehill plays really well because he's playing to determine if he's a starter in this league still or a backup, which is really fascinating to me with all the injuries to quarterbacks, is when do you start? You guys mentioned it. The Malik Willis giving the evaluation to see where he's at now. I don't think it's this game, but before these next 2 games are over with, I would want to see him in a game. I would really want to do that. I think they are probably start slowly going in that direction. Probably the last home game, just to see him play and see if he's made any progress within their scheme and system of what they're doing. Because if he's not, going to be on the team, he's going to increase his value in trade, or he won't be on the team. I don't think he's going to be a third-year practice squad player. To me, I agree with you guys. Would bring in a veteran backup with a young quarterback, and Levis being a one-year guy at that point in time, and you want to have someone he can lean on to and have conversations about the game within the game as a quarterback. Sometimes that helps out even more so than coaches. So I would love to have that. I would call it assistant quarterback coach, who's also an actual player. So, yeah, I want to see Willis because it doesn't hurt us any at all. We're not going to make the playoffs, so why not put him out there at some point in time? And I'm talking about not for a play. Those don't count to me. I want to see him at quarterback, and I want him to see him to screw up, see how he responds, see if he can actually run this offense, and see if he can be productive. Then you start opening your light. Because guess what? In preseason, we saw him take big, huge steps last year to this year. So you wonder if he can continue to grow. Maybe his maturation process in theory, is a lot longer than others because of the background he came from and the offense that he was running in college. So where Levis actually was running a pro-style offense. And, by the way, you guys just assumed that Tannehill would be a starter. Right, but they didn't do that when Malik Willis and Levis when it worked out, right?
No, that's what we talked about all
That was the right
preseason.
decision, by the way, but in how he massaged it, too, as well. I think this one's a little different just because a veteran quarterback who was a starter.
Yep.
I mean, he didn't lose his job. He lost his job because he was injured.
Blaine, can I ask you this real quick, though, before you jump in? But
Sure, go ahead.
does that mean, though, maybe because we're not seeing him, and again, there's 2 games after this, does that mean perhaps that they have seen enough
Of who?
out of Malik Willis?
Well,
is that it?
Some people would take that take, but guess what? It doesn't matter now. So you want to see, because guess why you want to see? If he can play. If he can't play for you, maybe someone else would say, I can fix him, especially at quarterback. It's just little tweaks here and there. People are going to believe that. Whether we believe it or not and we're covering them is a whole different story. There's still light at the end of the tunnel. Worst case scenario, you just cut him, and you knew you were going to cut him. Best case scenario, maybe somebody sees something in him.
Right.
Well, it's because it's not like he's not going to have other opportunities. We just talked about the value of quarterback, and Ryan Tannehill's discussion is much different than Malik Willis's at present, but still – Blaine, the only way for him to make any kind of substantial improvement, guys, is for him to play. For the same thing that we talked about with Levis. Like the only way to learn more about these guys, to see how they improve, to see how they isolate and eliminate in real time, to see how they react to different defenses and different pressures and things like that, and have that on tape so they can continue to learn and get the repetition and things of that nature. They just cannot recreate that stuff in practice, and it's certainly during the regular season. Blaine, there are no practice reps for a backup quarterback.
No.
We'll see what the situation is for them right now, because you said they're in a different circumstance, having already been eliminated this early in the year. But I think that it's a question worth asking Mike Vrabel every week. Like, I think it's worth asking,
I would agree.
in the lead up during the week to practice, and we'll see how he responds. This week he was pretty definitive about it.
Yes.
It seemed next week it might not be that case.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we will find out. 3 more games to go, starting with this one today at Nissan Stadium. You can join us here. We are just outside gate number 1 next to the Titans Pro Shop. We are staring into beautiful East Nashville, and you can come enjoy this view with us.
It is beautiful today.
Yeah.
It's
sure is.
phenomenal.
It's awesome.
While you're here, remember, be a good fan on game day. Today's broadcast is brought to you in part by SA Recycling. SA Recycling reminds you to be a good fan this game and every game day. Look for recycle bins in and around Nissan Stadium, as well as the SA Recycling Razor, which is parked in front of us. We have threatened many times to take that for a ride. We may have to do that today. And, of course, Lee Company on Christmas Eve and on every day that we take this stage. They bring you the show. Lee Company, all you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com. Lee Company Countdown to Kickoff on Christmas Eve. Wherever you are listening with us today, just had a gentleman who came up and said he listens in Washington.
Battleground.
Every week. Is that near where you're from?
That's the west side. I'm from
West
the east side.
East side. Okay.
The east side of
Wow.
Washington.
I'm from the east side,
Didn't
too.
see
The
that
east
coming.
side.
No matter which side of Middle Tennessee you live on, Lee Company, they got you covered. Lee Company, all you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com. Also, we mentioned the weather. Let's just go ahead and give you the weather. The sun just popped out. It's
my
gorgeous. I
gosh.
forgot my sunglasses. Spring Hill Heating and Cooling, they bring you the weather every week. They are also offering cost-effective solutions like free service calls with their repairs and low monthly payments on those repairs if you need them. Spring Hill Heating and Cooling available anytime at springhillac.com. I stayed up last night. I watched our man Davis Nolan do the weather, and he said it is going to be 63 at kickoff and 68 in the fourth quarter with some kind of a breeze today. I will tell all of you this. I mean, Christmas Eve, 68 degrees. Are we even kidding anybody here? This may be the
We
best.
live in a dream. We live in the best spot right
you
now.
kidding me?
Yeah.
Well, that's because last year, we could have perished. we would have wasted away out here. That was a whole different situation, right? That was
Rolling
the
blackouts.
rolling blackouts.
Yep.
There was stuff caught on fire, like
Yeah.
high line wires and things.
And the game itself was delayed against the Texans by an hour. It was just like
Yep.
weird vibes all throughout the course of the day. So to see it, to see it kind of turn around this way has been phenomenal. So I think that for a lot of people, I was talking to some friends about this last night. The idea like going to the Titans game, and I wasn't sure what the crowd was going to look like and tailgating and things like that. But like if you were planning to like spend the holidays at a football game, you're probably already going to do that.
Sure.
Even if last week went the way that it did. And I think for a lot of people to like bring their kids out at a time when maybe it's more cost effective to come see games and stuff like that. You don't necessarily remember as a young kid going to a game on Christmas who won or who lost. You probably just remember that you had a good time and stuff like that. So games like that, even as the circumstance from a competitive standpoint is not ideal. That kind of stuff is still fun to see out here today.
Heck yeah.
Lots of Seahawks fan too. I know a lot of family and friends up there. Obviously, there's people coming down here just to spend their Christmas Eve in a different way. Coming down to Nashville, getting to experience Nashville, maybe as it's not as busy, like you were saying, and taking a
No.
Seahawks game.
The rest of it is still. I saw plenty of people out
Was
there.
it
on Broadway.
really?
Yeah.
Good Lord,
That
does that
machine-
thing ever stop?
That machine never slows
There's
down.
a lot.
That thing
There's a
never
hockey.
stops,
There's
huh?
an afternoon hockey game yesterday,
Yes,
and then
there
it just
was.
kind of all spills out into the street.
It sure does. I wonder if there's any Christmas Eve bachelorette woo girl parties going on right now.
That'd be next level.
Perpetually. Now I
But
will
we
say,
know where those spots are.
Yes, he would.
they just happen to be across the street from where we work.
I knew that. That's no. You know all the spots.
Slander on Christmas
Yeah,
Eve.
yeah. Hey, it's
It
okay.
is funny though. Speaking of just mentioning the Preds, that Jeff Simmons was at the Preds game last night. They put him on the
Yeah.
jumbo.
Oh, I didn't see that.
And then like a couple hours later, they put him on IR. And it's just like, oh,
Having a little fun before.
yeah, okay, big guy.
Before he melts away.
Enjoy your off season.
A trip to Nashville is never frustrating, especially on a beautiful Christmas Eve. But last Sunday is one of the most
We got to
frustrating
get Blaine
things.
one of these sun lamp things. Or
We-
like
I
a
know.
sunscreen thing.
Jeez,
Taking in all
this
the
is
energy.
unbelievable. I'm
Well,
gonna
there
tan
wasn't
out
a lot of
here.
energy
Energy
from the
coming this
Titans
way,
offense last week. I wonder what the first down run count success rate will look like today, after that being a source of discussion by all of us on all of our shows every day.
Blaine, what is a fair?
With Kayla, right?
Well, but I wanna know.
Not the no RB. I do not
No,
know
but from this, I want to know from a player.
Oh.
What do I do with the first down run stuff? If you're a defender and you're preparing for the Titans, and you're looking at it from a perspective of, are they running the football on first down, not just because they have to run the football, but because they're just trying to take some pressure off an offensive line that struggles in pass protection as well. We saw from first half to second half how that kind of changed, right? They had to drop back more. They gave up 7 sacks. He wasn't sacked at all in the first half. The first down runs are frustrating. The first down runs have been ineffective, but they have to do something, and the limitations are such that it seems like, at least in this last game against the Texans, they were backed into a corner. I don't know what it's going to look like today.
Right.
But in this last game, I think that's where a lot of people started to their frustration started to bubble over at the coaching staff. And while I do think some criticism is fair for the coaching staff, I think you understand the spot that they're in.
Yeah, no, they're in a really tough spot. And I have to applaud, Vrabel in that you have to run the football. But when it's not working, at some point the rubber meets the road and you said, okay, now let's use play action pass to the same player, 22 of course, and then now let's set the offense up or the defense by now utilizing him as a passer. I mean, like, we're going to fake to him, and now we're going to pass the ball. So it's a fine line. I just thought they reached that line where you say, okay, and it's not just drop back and we're going to throw the ball. You still use him somewhat as, bait. And because it wasn't working, and I get coming out of halftime, you want to see if you can reestablish it. What I think he's getting confused is this is not the team of last year or his past teams.
Yeah.
And see, to me, that is – if a player can't do something and you can't run against this team, and they've proven that here in an entire half, now let's try to make some adjustments off of that. Let's play off of that, and now let's use the pass to set up the run. Because just imagine if you play action to them and then completed a couple passes down the field, they're going to then get out of that, and then now you come back with the hammer. So it's like playing, a chess. That's how I look at it. Instead, he played checkers. And that's not good enough. You got to be able to play it. Now, that's worked out when he's had some good teams because we had a better offensive line. So we don't have that. And they've proven that they were in the backfield all day long. And it was just kind of interesting to see how it goes. And I think he just saw Jersey and said, Houston, Texas, King always does well. Well, not with Ryan's running the defense.
And
not with him running the defense.
Exactly. That's my thing. I thought he had a hell of a game plan.
Yeah, he
Blaine,
did.
I really did. It's almost like how
he got out-coached.
Right.
He did.
It's almost like how the Titans had a hell of a defensive game plan against Miami. Right?
Yes.
I'm going to give some credit to D'Amico Ryans in this situation. But I don't think it could get any worse for Derrick Henry this week. If anything, I believe, and they're going to use him until he's not here, right? I mean, as long as he's on that roster.
Well, that's the identity of the team.
They're going to utilize him. Right.
Yeah, no doubt.
Exactly. And that's what Tim Kelly said this week when asked about the identity or the style of this team. And he was like, run the ball when it's successful. Run the ball, be physical, and set up play action, right? I mean, that's what they are still doing because Derrick is here. So I guess the good news for Titans fans is I don't see it getting any worse. If anything, what we've seen from Derrick in the past when he has had a poor showing or a poor game, he's able to come back with something. And I would say that with what he looked like on that podium defeated last weekend, when he was having to talk about the lowest numbers he's ever had here as a rusher, I would think he's probably going to have some sort of bounce back. Now, what that line will enable him to do is another story. But Peter also had one of his worst games.
Oh, yeah. Well, fatigue, as a rookie, you start hitting that wall. I mean, he's kind of probably getting to that point, especially all the things he's gone through with, the surgeries and everything else. It's tough. But right now it's all about evaluation, and they may be even evaluating him at, the other guard or even putting him at tackle at some point. At this point in time, I would be trying a lot of different things just so I'm a little clear more going into the off season. I think it's
you got so many questions you got to answer, Blaine.
Do. Yeah, you really do.
But
none of them's offensive tackle. That's nowhere near answered.
Yeah, well,
and that's the number one priority in my opinion.
But you bring up Skoronski and kind of like what we talked about a little bit with Malik. I think it's a question worth asking on a weekly basis. We'll see how these things go, and because there has been a complete and total reticence to move Peter Skoronski outside throughout the course of the year. They wanted to see him at guard. They wanted to see him improve at guard. And again, as you mentioned, they are playing as rookies more football than they ever have at any point in their careers. This is a long and grueling season. And he's been available down this last stretch of it, right, since missing the 3 games after the season opener at New Orleans. But I think for Derrick, it's such a fascinating kind of situation because I have no idea what it looks like at the end of the year for him. We're talking about evaluating a lot of players. I don't know whether a determination has been made on Derrick Henry and his future here or not, or whether they want to see these 3 games play out. It's a weird spot because he is getting contacted behind the line literally half the time that he's getting these touches. 50% of the time he's getting contacted behind the line this season. It's impossible for him to do the Derrick Henry things if he can't get a first step, much less 2 or 3, and start to gain momentum. And for Spears, it's not like it would be a complete difference if they were to go with more Tajay Spears, do it a couple of series at a time, We've seen them do that throughout the course of this, whether the game situation dictates that or otherwise. But for Derek, he's such a big target. They're having trouble in front of him consistently because there have been moments when it has looked kind of what we associate Derrick Henry Titans football to be, but it's not been consistent throughout the course of the year. In these last couple of games, it's been a bit of a slog. So, how the coaching staff answers that question and how they feel about seeing more Tajay Spears in a situation. I don't know whether they would want to do that or not. I just think we're now in the phase of where we start to see these things play out as they start to make decisions about their future. And Derrick Henry is a big decision. If not for the organization, and if you're going to be kind of like emotionless about it, for a lot of people who love Derrick Henry here with the Tennessee Titans organization as a fan base for everything that he's done and all the great things that he's accomplished to this point, and still stands to do, whether that's on a roster right out of the gate in training camp, or with a lot of running backs, teams get to August and you look around and Zeke Elliott's a New England Patriot for 1 year, $3 million.
Right.
It's kind of one of those situations.
Well, Buck kind of mentioned this. I mean, what do they have to lose at this point, shifting more towards Tajay Spears, whose skill set and his suddenness when the ball hits his hands to maybe at least avoid the first guy who's right there at his feet? Do they do that? Or do they just, as Blaine said, Derrick's been their identity. Do they just roll with their identity strongly through these last 3 games? Or is it time to maybe flip the switch? Because there have been times where their snap count was a little more similar, but Derrick has been the guy all year. Is it time to make Tajay the guy for 3 more weeks?
I'd like to see it. If we're talking about you've already put your key guys on IR and you're trying to exactly, and you're trying to see what you have in certain guys. They know what they have in Tajay, but in terms of being a primary back, I don't know yet. I would like to see a little more of Tajay in those situations, and then maybe just utilize Derrick when they get in red zone situations so that you can see a little bit of Tajay Spears on a full drive, because we don't really see much of that. So I say, why not? Because if that's your future and that's the offense they're kind of trying to go towards, why not start now with 3 games to go and you're out of the playoffs and you're already playing without key players?
Well, the only thing that I would say is because he's the reason why people show up. Now, I know it's a little
that
different.
Makes sense.
Like, there's a lot of 22 jerseys. We'll see what it looks like over the course of the next couple of weeks. But, I mean, the dude is different for a lot of different reasons. Now, that sentimentality, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it shouldn't matter. But if just to play devil's advocate, as any reason at all, a lot of people still come to see Derrick Henry. He's still the thing he's still the face of the franchise.
Right.
Yeah, and it's just really hard to let it go.
Sure.
And I think Vrabel's that way. I think the organization is that way. But at some point, you got to find that happy medium, and I don't think they ever really found that. And I really think that's why the offense has been up and down and conflicted, let alone the offensive line. But you can't run the football all year with the offensive line performance, so then that eliminates Derrick Henry's effect. So with you guys, I'm conflicted, to be honest.
Well, it's not an easy thing.
I know.
Because it's another side of it where I want him to go out. This is it for us here, and I think they believe probably that, unless he's going to come back at a low price, like you just mentioned, $3 million or whatever it may be, and let's see if he can carry us. And so I think I would if I'm in the coaching shoes of Vrabel, I'm gonna let the game kind of dictate which way we go. I'm going to go in it like I always do, and Derrick Henry's the guy. And then as the game goes along, if we're not being able to run the ball, and it's clearly clear that Tajay Spears brings a little spark, and he's making yardage or not getting losses because of his style of running, then I would avert and then use him a little bit more. That's kind of, I will let the game dictate, just because I have that kind of respect for an elite player like Derrick Henry. Let's just see if he can go out on a bang. If not, hey, I can say I gave it all I got and gave him a shot. And that's, the line too as well, and the tight ends and everybody else blocking. So that's where I would start, I think, and then see if he can get it going. And if he can't, then we'll move on to Spears. Yeah, that's kind of how I approach it.
All right, so, you've had that energy for a lot of different players, a lot of different positions this year. Now we are in a point where it would be acceptable, right?
Right.
We're now at a point where it would be an acceptable move, and whether they needed that kind of permission or not to make a decision like that, this would be the time to make that kind of decision. If it plays itself out, we have no idea. Listen, the dude has already beat the odds. Like, he's the only running back that got running backs on those second contracts that ended up being worth it. I know McCaffrey is having an incredible year now, but after Carolina initially paid him, like, he missed so much football.
Yeah.
Derek has been available. Derek has been dependable. And, I mean, we brought up Zeke and kind of where he's at, and running backs like that, Dalvin Cook with the Jets this year. Those dudes are 2 years younger. And I don't know, Lucas brought this up on the radio show the other day, Dalvin Cook's numbers this year, but they're ghastly for what that was supposed to look like and all the decisions that might have helped, kind of put the Jets over the top when Aaron Rodgers was still available, right? Different conversation. But Derek has already beat the odds. I know better than to, bet against him more often than not. But it's a fascinating thing to watch play out in real time. I don't think you have to have any strong opinions one way or the other just yet.
He has 884 yards this season, 116 away from 1,000 in 3 games to do it. But the output has been such a slog the last 2 weeks. You really have to wonder, can the guys in front of him present an opportunity for him to get that 1,000 yards? Because maybe that's some milestone they'd like to get him since they have nothing else, playoff-wise to play for. Maybe it's let's try to get him to 1,000 and then let's roll to the next guy and let him get the rest. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of any scenario here. But he's 116 away from another 1,000-yard season in his career.
It's stupid. He's 5th in the league in rushing still.
Yes.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And maybe that McCaffrey is in a class unto himself this year, so it's a different kind of a discussion. And I think he's a couple, maybe 150 yards shy of a 1,500-yard season, I think, to date. And Mostert at 31 years old is doing incredible things for the Miami Dolphins with the way that they're able to deploy him and use him. So, yeah, I mean, stuff like that matters. DeAndre Hopkins was asked about getting to 1,000 yards as a receiver. He'd be the first one since A.J. was here to reach that mark, and he's not quite there yet, but with 3 games left, it's viable that he could do it. And he said, well, it's not about individual accomplishments, but then asked, at a point in a season like this where you're looking for things as a team that you guys did collectively, that's not just you, that's the quarterbacks that you've worked with throughout the course of the season, that's the receivers, that's the plays, that's everybody. Those things are important collectively, whether it's Derek that's the vehicle for that, whether that's DeAndre Hopkins, the rookies and what they're able to accomplish in these games. There are still ways to, for them, and they need to as professional athletes. They know this, and rookies learn this as they spend more time, I'm sure. But, you don't need somebody to hype you up about what it is to be in these NFL football games and what that means to, in a season like this, still reach 1,000 yards mark, 1,000 yards rushing or receiving, whether you're Hopkins or Henry.
Yeah, Hop at 919 with 3 games to go. The Seahawks are 25th in rush defense. They gave up 127.3 rush yards per game. Will that matter today? We will find out in just a few hours. We'll see what that looks like. If you're coming out here today, we'd love to see you. Again, we're just outside gate number 1 on the east side of the Titan Stadium. Come by and say hello to us. Tell us Merry Christmas, and we'll do the same as we celebrate Christmas Eve. The Titans getting ready to take on the Seahawks today at noon at Nissan Stadium. And as you guys pointed out, definitely a very different weather picture than what we enjoyed about a year ago.
Hiding in the studio.
Oh, my gosh.
Right?
Today, with people in our ears saying, you got to keep going. It looks like it's going to be a while. It'll never be a while when you call Lee Company. They're always ready for you. Facility managers need a reliable partner for their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical needs. They trust Lee Company's 24/7 service and their team of experts. Your next play, visit LeeCompany.com. Lee Company, all you need. Let's go, Lee Company. Countdown to kickoff on 104.5 The Zone. Merry Christmas Eve to each and everybody. Crowd starting to fill in over here. Remember, you can come and say hello to us. We say hello to all of you. Hello to Lee Company. Lee Company, all you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com. Hopefully, a lot of people coming out to spend some time at Nissan Stadium today with friends and family. Would love to have you. Titans would love to have the noise that you make in the stands. Titans fans have been loud this year at the games.
It's been good.
They've been keeping the defense pumped up, and I know their love that they've given to me has not helped my Mickey's moneymakers, but I have felt the love. I've felt your support. I'm sorry I failed your wallets. It's been a slog, but you know, it's hard to predict things like Derrick Henry running 16 times for 9 yards.
Whoa.
Yes.
There have been terrible, terrible things that have happened, but a good craftsman never blames his tools. Buck has the lead right now. Buck's best bets. Joseph, roll it. Let's let Buck try to see if he can get back to 500.
What's the
today.
record?
Oh, it's bad.
It's right. He went 0 for 4.
But yeah, last week
He's not even gonna say
last
what
week
it
I
is.
took an abject beating. Buck is 8-7 on the year because he's the one pick per game
Okay,
guy.
so he was 1 over 100.
I've tried to go
500.
volume.
Some would say he's just smarter than you.
No, he's no. Anybody who's smart
Many
would say that,
people are
right?
saying this.
Anybody who's smart would
Many
say.
people are saying
No,
this.
not just some people. Anybody who was smart.
Mickey
Blaine.
just, is betting on his emotions, and that's why I'm definitely
And
not
I let
betting.
you and Kayla every
We
week
did-
talk me
we
into
did
more
hype you
bad.
up on
We did,
NWI.
We did.
We
It's
did.
Peer pressure. It's
Yeah.
okay. That's
Buck
all right.
paid us behind the scenes.
Well, I'm paying everybody else off, so hit the music. Do it.
Your money.
Buck Reising.
Money.
Boom.
All right. So we're 8-7. We're hanging on. You're still making money. Over 500. Mickey, I got emotional with you last week, though.
Yep.
I went 0 for.
Yes.
I went 0 for 1. I got caught up. I got caught up in my emotions. I said, hey, they messed around. They won in Miami. Will Levis, 1.5 passing touchdowns. I'm feeling pretty good about that. Feeling pretty good. The Houston Texans, they're missing a bunch of parts. Should have been able to pay that one off. Obviously, it did not
Sadly,
go that
none
way.
of that mattered.
No. None of it
Said
mattered.
that week after week. Here.
He ran for a touchdown. But I got no passing touchdowns I didn't pay that particular prop off.
Okay.
In that moment, and the Titans, we know how that went. But today, we're going to leave emotion out of it because they're out of playoff contention doesn't mean that this doesn't still matter to me and your wallets out there. So we're looking at the Titans and the Seahawks. 42 points is the over-under in the Zen Sports app.
I think that's down even another half
Okay.
point from yesterday.
42. The under of 42, both teams combined, is minus 110. I like that today.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a slog.
Okay.
I think Gino in his first game back. I think you got a lot of young players and a lot of different players playing for the Titans today. I don't know what the outcome's going to be, but I think it's going to be a little low. I think it'll be a casual afternoon. A
typical Titans
been a
score.
little bumpy. Maybe 17 points, maybe
Yeah.
13 points, maybe 16 points. Who's to say? But I'm feeling under 42 today.
Okay.
Ching.
Oh, that
He's
was
real quick with it. You know
Mickey,
why?
Mickey
Well,
hates
he
hearing
need
that
to
now.
turn that up. I couldn't barely
I know,
hear it.
right?
I don't know
It's
if
just
that's
a very faint cha-ching off in the distance.
You may be onto something though. That may be a game like that.
Only
Low
by
scoring,
one.
conservative.
Only by one game am I onto something.
Yeah. Only this game.
8-7.
Only this game.
I've been
8-7.
undone
One
by
time
this
just chipping away.
offense
You're
week
winning.
after week after week. But let's try again. Got to make up some volume. Got 3 games left to try to cross this river into the promised land for this waves of indifference once again that I am encountering here with this segment. Let's roll it, Joseph.
Do it.
Roll them, JB.
It's a guess.
Hopefully.
Not lately.
You need
No.
to bounce back.
What? There's no drums solo.
I know.
What's happening?
Let's ride.
Oh, my gosh.
He didn't even get Russ today.
Oh, my
That's
gosh.
shameful.
Oh, he's coming. There he
There
is.
he is.
A little bit warmer than I.
That would have been great if he was still with the Seahawks.
I know these Seahawks fans are like, get that off the
100%
radio.
To have him say that before
Get
this
that
game.
off the radio.
Let's
Hey
ride.
man, they got Gino. They told
Yeah.
Russ to let's ride right
Gino
on out
doesn't
of town.
write back.
Yeah.
Chris Moore. This may be the most astounding stat about this team. Do you guys know what Chris Moore averages per catch
It's
this
a lot
year?
because he only does big catches.
It's the most in the NFL.
Now,
qualified pass catcher.
How many catches does he have, though? He's only got like
Right.
19 catches.
You only have to have 15 to qualify, I think.
So he pretty much has probably 16.
Aha. Yes.
Cheating.
Whatever he has is right over the
It's
amount.
cheating.
No, it's not cheating. The NFL makes these. They make these numbers. I don't make them.
It's fine. You're chasing either way. What's the bet?
What's he averaging?
Chris Moore has I was looking at his carries because he's so valuable to this team. He carries the ball sometimes too. Chris Moore has 17 receptions,
17
on 26
receptions.
targets. You never see him drop a ball. He's been dependable
true.
for this team. When called upon, he averages 20.8
Yeah.
yards per catch.
That's wild.
Yep.
That's like rookie Chris Sanders level stuff as far as average.
Yeah. So when he got in the game, I'll just be thinking deep.
Sure.
So
That's it.
Chris Moore, his over-under for receiving yards is 19.5. So
Okay.
they're depleted there, too. NWI went on IR.
That was the other one I
Playing the
forgot
alphabet
about.
game this week. NWI to IR. Chris Moore, over 19.5 rushing yards. Cash, so that's one catch for Chris Moore.
One
Give
pass,
it to
one
me.
catch.
Cha-ching. Tajay Spears. Every week, I think this is the week that they shift gears for him. I have to keep going with this, though. I'm like Thelma and Louise. I'm going to hold hands with
Oh,
Tajay
goodness.
Spears. We're going to ride over the cliff together,
Yep.
is what we're going to
Oh
do.
no!
Oh, no, we're going to do it.
I like that
That's not a good outcome.
I mean, that's a pretty good analogy for his betting season.
I know. That's what
Right over the cliff.
Buck gets it.
Right over the cliff.
We have torpedoed this deal.
Tough scene,
After a
bud.
brilliant start this year, it has torpedoed itself.
That's a different
Well, you
kind
got to
of
keep
ride.
betting. You got to keep betting more than Buck, so you can
That's
get.
right.
You
He's
got-
chasing.
What do you
Yeah,
have
you
to
got
lose?
two
What do
more-
you have
two
to
more
lose,
games.
Mickey?
What would our friend Chelsea Messenger say? Don't chase. Don't chase. And I, like a dog chasing its tail. Tajay Spears over 28.5 rushing yards. At some point, this has to happen. 28.5 rushing yards. The fact that you don't feel good about it makes me feel good because normally anything you guys feel
Reverse
good
psychology.
about, the most terrible things happen.
Hey, listen, whatever you need to do to get through these bets, bud.
Tajay Spears.
Notice how Blaine and
I
I
keep
are
winning.
not chipping. We're not
Yeah,
even
that
going to
is
hype
it,
up
yeah.
today. We're just going to stay in our lane.
Oh, yeah, out of guilt because
Yeah.
you've seen this
Yeah, we
Tajay.
know.
No,
Yeah, we
because
feel
0-4 smells bad. They don't want the stink on them.
We like winners.
It's like
we like winners.
it's like in a movie where a submarine sinks and it drops to the shelf and then it starts to slide down to the next shelf or the bottom. That's kind of me. I'm teetering on that.
You're
one
doing
shelf.
great, bud.
Thanks so much.
Oh my! Antagonizing you,
all
man,
right.
right there, man.
Periscope down. One more bet. I seldom make bets on the other team. But, man, JSN seems to be finding
Love
himself.
JSN.
His yardage prop today is over under 40.5. And as Blaine pointed out last week, he literally caught the back of a
Yep.
ball
It
on a
was
play.
sick.
The
That was
back of
so
the
cool.
ball,
Spectacular.
like behind the laces.
That was hard.
Yep.
So the Titans are, well, let's just say depleted in every place that you can be depleted.
Oh my!
Especially the secondary. Ooh.
40.5. Look, I'm not like a hang on to the past guy, but
You're not.
Well, I am. But all I
Brother,
can,
you are the definition. You were educating me about eBay earlier, about things that you shop, vintage things that you shop for.
Okay,
I
I'm
feel
very
like I'm gonna
much-
find a custom-made Mickey Ryan on eBay one of these days.
okay. I very much am a hang on to the past guy. I mean, like the short term past. I try not to let personnel moves or things stick with me.
Sure.
But all I can think today is all these guys hit the IR is, well, you could sure use a guy like Monty Rice and Tierre Torrance.
Oh.
It is what it is. Hey, man.
We're going that low.
I would have had, hey, man, I'm going to mend some fences with these dudes. But you knew you were thin ice, perilously thin. Now we're going to let these jokers just head on to the great beyond.
The great beyond being New Orleans and Houston.
Yeah. And they'll see Tierre, next week?
Yeah. Boy, Tierre Tart's like down there just doing side straddle hops, prepping for
Pop-tarting.
that game. He is.
Yeah, he's just running, getting in shape right now. Watch me in championship shoe, coach.
Just for one game.
Yeah,
That's all you
game.
got to do, big guy.
Said I
That's all you got to
wasn't
do.
in shape, huh? Well, guess what? I'm about to show you what in shape is.
I think the prop I like the most out of that is the JSN stuff.
JSN, what I was going to say.
Well, for DK Metcalf, his was like 60-plus yards. And I don't know. I mean, he could very well get 60-plus yards on one catch. Tyler Lockett was almost 50.
Okay.
The JSN, man, he just seems to be finding himself at this point. And I loved him in the draft.
I wanted him here
really
so
liked
bad,
him.
you guys.
And I know he doesn't outrun people down the field necessarily, but he gets open, and I don't know. Just be nice to see people get open.
They can use him at every position that they use the wide receivers in that offense. He's and I know he's a slot player in college, but they've found ways to really get him open all over the place.
Yeah.
Boy, imagine that.
Those are three nice weapons to have.
Well, he's also been available. That's one thing.
The other thing is, they're all three different guys.
They're all three completely different.
They look different. They're built different. They have different skill sets. Like, my gosh, they have one of everything.
Yep.
Then they got Fant at tight end.
They got Fant. I actually liked Fant in the 2019 draft here, too. I loved Fant.
Me too.
Yeah, was a real big fan of his.
Yeah, really good athlete.
Him and Hawkinson, Drew Lock, all those guys hanging around here. We got to meet them. Boy, big weekend for Drew Lock last weekend. He bet on himself. But it looks like it will be Geno Smith. All right, that's the best bets. We got hour number 2 coming up. Kayla's going to head in. We'll get a field report from her. We will not hear from Ron Slade today. He is helping Santa Claus pack the sleigh. We just got word on that. So, kids, don't worry. Uncle Ron Slay will make sure that your toy gets where it's supposed to get.
I like that.
Yeah, sleigh. Helping with the sleigh ride.
Yeah, that's what he's doing. If you believe that.
Blaine, this is the day where you got to believe. All right. We believe we got one more hour left.
I almost did that on the radio the other week.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Do not.
I was saying that he was sleigh riding somewhere else last night. That's why he's not here. Not what y'all thinking.
No.
Okay.
Yes, we are all on the Christmas sleigh ride with Ron Slay and Santa here. We're on the sleigh ride with Lee Company. Always Lee Company, all you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com.
He was on Broadway.
Yeah. Welcome in and Merry Christmas Eve to all. Thanks for spending part of your holiday with us. Got a lot of people at the stadium who are checking in now, getting ready to enter Gate 1. By the way, that's where we are, Gate 1, right next to the Titans Pro Shop. You can stop by and say hello to us. You can say bah humbug to Buck if you want to.
I'm the most festive one here. Get out of here. I mean, bah humbug. The drama. Good morning, boys. Merry Christmas.
Yes, sir.
Oh. Is that
AF
red or is
and
that
festive.
maroon?
Yes.
I think the inside's maroon.
Oh, so that tells you what it is.
It's maroon.
Come out the most festive.
I wore green and Whataburger Christmas socks.
Nobody could see the socks,
It's like a party down there with my shoe tops.
A party at your socks.
Yeah, it is.
All
It's a
right.
party on my feet. You can get on your feet and party with us if you want to come down here today. We'd love to have you. Lee Company would love to have you hang out with them. They Titans trust their home stadium to Lee Company to tackle their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical problems, and they can protect your home too. Your next play is to visit LeeCompany.com. Lee Company, all you need. Lee Company can fix your house. I wonder if Lee Company has any doctors on staff because the Titans injury list, usually this starts to happen much earlier in the season while they're setting records.
Oh, no.
Boy, it is the injury bug and the illness bug and everything has bitten them lately. 3 more players placed on IR just yesterday. Jack Gibbons, Luke Gifford, 2 linebackers at a position they are thin at. Large Jeff. Also, you can add them to Amani Hooker.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the offense had to get in on the act, NWI. All of those people went on IR this week. This team is hurting at DB, at linebacker, at defensive line. I think, TK McClendon, Sean Murphy-Bunning, Kayvon Wallace, all ruled out this week, too. This has just been an unbelievably horrible personnel week for this team.
Well, there's, Lucas asked me about, like, when NWI went on injured reserve and said, would he have, would they have shut him down if the playoffs were still possible and things like that? Would they have shut Jeff down if the playoffs were still possible? Because they waited that wasn't an immediate decision. Like, they waited a couple of weeks. They continued to progress how he progressed.
Yeah, for Jeff.
Or to continue to monitor how he progressed, and then made a decision yesterday, whether they made it yesterday or made it earlier in the week, about what his availability would be for the rest of the year. So we don't know the answer to those questions, just what has come down in the last week once they've been eliminated for postseason contention. So now you're in a different mindset, even if you're not saying that. Like, that's the quiet part that nobody wants to say out loud. But you're looking at a variety of different players and trying to learn stuff, as we talked about in the first hour. But the list is considerable, right? You're talking about whatever you think of them as players and whatever that means about their time here, whether it's coming to an end at the end of the season, whether they'll be re-signed, have other opportunities elsewhere. Guys like Christian Fulton, who are playing meaningful snaps for you. Chris Hubbard has been done for a considerable amount of time, the guy who was starting and playing good football for them at right tackle. We mentioned T.R. Tart earlier and him being jettisoned from the roster. Not only are they without Tart, but then Jeff and Kyle Pecco, who is playing a ton of snaps on the inside for this team. Ryan Stonehouse obviously missing time. Nicholas Petit-Frere, who has been in and out of the lineup for a variety of different reasons, more out than in on the lineup this year. And
are you just reading the lengthy IR list?
I'm literally reading the IR list. But like these are players who we needed to learn stuff about this year, who we felt like we kind of had lost seasons from for one reason or the other. Kearis Jackson, just not a huge name, right?
Yeah.
But somebody who was showing some stuff during the preseason. We were looking at viable options for returners, guys who could maybe make a difference or not. We have no idea whether that might have been the case, but we never got the opportunity to find out. He got an ankle injury, and we never saw him again, and it didn't sound, based on my understanding, that he was ever particularly close to returning. So unfortunate for him, a UDFA who was looking to make a roster somewhere. Just guys who are finding ways to get opportunities. Injury has robbed a lot of dudes of that this year and provided other opportunities for others, unfortunately. So that's kind of what we're looking at today.
Well, I just don't want that to form into that's why they're having a bad season, is because of all these injuries.
No.
That's not the case. It's just the O-line play and then playing up and down defensively and not dominating every single game up front, in particular on defense, I think has robbed this team of an opportunity to be in playoff contention. So more so that than injured players. But that is a laundry list of players there. Yes.
Maybe the biggest surprise of all that is not necessarily that this team has injured players. We've seen them be decimated by injuries for the past couple of years. Is that there was video this week of Caleb Farley practicing, although in a weird twist of fate, he could be activated off the PUP list and have 18 days and still be in his 21-day window to not ever play for this team. I don't know if he'll play at all, but just for a guy who's had the worst luck, honestly, that was kind of a Christmas present, I think, for all Titans fans, just to see this guy have something break his way.
That's kind of where we're at with his situation. And Mike Vrabel said on Friday that he would not play this season with where he currently is. He's still on the PUP, but was able to return to practice in some capacity this week. And like you said, just to get back to doing what he is, right? He's a football player. He's been a football player his entire life, whether he's been a defensive back or a wide receiver or whatever. Coming up through, I'm sure, as a child in high school and college, and now trying to find some opportunity to break through in the pros, and his body has kind of robbed him of that unfairly. And listen, I understand that Titans fans are frustrated because he is a part of a list that is not very viable on players in the top 100 that this team has not gotten meaningful contributions from in 3 of the last 4 drafts prior to 2023. We talk about from 2020 to 2022, where a lot of this stuff started and where a lot of these opportunities were missed or players didn't pan out for one reason or the other, whether that's on the player, on the coaching staff, or otherwise. So for Farley, just to see him get back to doing some of what he is, some of who he's been his entire life, where there's been personal tragedy, not just on the field difficulties and adversity, it was cool for him. And I know he spoke to that earlier in the locker room this week.
Yeah, it's positive reinforcement from his part to see that he's overcome all that. And he is now back on the field doing something that he loves, really. And see him out there moving around how he was. I was pretty excited about him moving around like that. I think it's going to be kind of interesting to see if he can rekindle some of those things that he learned, not only through this process of being injured, all these things, but how to manage his way through an NFL season, how to stay healthy. Can he make a roster? Will someone give him an opportunity? If he's not with the Titans, he could be with the Titans, and then with the role he's in, because if he can get back to somewhat of a high level of where he was drafted, I think he's going to get an opportunity. I just don't know if people are going to take a huge risk just because of the health history there. So he's going to have to show he can make it through a season. So we shall see next season as they build on and continue to work with him and see what they can get out of him. Maybe he's not here, maybe he is, but I'd love to see a guy like that come back and have a positive note and play solid.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Whether it's with the Titans or someone else.
He's been so
great dude too.
Oh my God,
person.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have things that they lean on, and we're in the holiday season, and I know he talks a lot about his faith and things like that, and just the way that he has managed it, being such a young person and having so much happen to him, whether it was going through the pandemic, sitting out football because of the pandemic, because of health-related issues in his family that he was trying to avoid, like all these different decisions that he's made that were very, very adult and very mature at the time, just to see all the different difficulties that he's been presented with and how he's managed it. It's you root for guys in a lot of different situations, but he is a story that you hope has a positive ending or is starting to see an upward trajectory at the very least.
No doubt.
He's certainly been a good story these last few days. Looking over at the Seahawks as they come in, we talked a lot about the Titans offense in the first half. We talked about the Titans defenders who will not be out there today, a host of them, and some for the rest of the season. Geno Smith has been a nice story in Seattle. A reclamation project there has got a chance, has made the most of it. They had a losing streak. Geno gets beat up a little bit, sits out last week. Drew Lock comes in, wins an emotional Monday Night Football game, but by all accounts, Geno Smith will be back today. I do know this. It was Drew Lock who played quarterback last week, but Seattle's offensive line only let him get hit 3 times.
Isn't that amazing?
3 times last week. Drew Lock 3 times in that game, and it's not like they don't throw the ball. No, they ran the ball really well against the Eagles too, but the Titans have got to find a pass rush today, and Buck, you named all the guys who won't be there. No Pecco and no Big Jeff, and there's a bunch of guys who won't have the opportunity, but somehow, some way, they have to manufacture a way to make Geno Smith uncomfortable, and there have been entire halves of games where they've struggled at times to just not get pressure or struggle to get pressure.
Well, and that's the thing. That's what was as crazy as anything that happened in that Monday Night Football game is that Philadelphia can't rush the quarterback. They led the league in sacks last year. Their defense, and we talked about Kevin Byard and the trade that was made and all those things. he's still a solid player, but there's a lot of problems in that secondary and decisions being made where they're changing coach, like play callers.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
I've never – Blaine, how the
Well, I mean, the Bills did it on offense, but it was just like, wow.
But not keeping the guy in the building, like taking everything about the job away from him and just kind of not even sidelining him, sending him up to the booth.
Right.
Being like, get out of here, but you're not fired, but I don't want to see you anymore, basically. Like, it was a weird situation that happened with Philly. And anyway.
I think that came from up top, by the way, according to my, understanding from people out there in Philly.
It's entirely
Hey, man, you got to make some changes.
That's what I'm hearing.
Well,
man.
listen, that's an organization that will not suffer much.
Yes.
And not just a fan base.
One
but
of
as
us
an
one of us
organization.
spent a year there and had to deal with that.
They legit, man. They got to get that thing fixed. And they were like, I think you need to change coordinators.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when the guy that you let or got an opportunity to go be the head coach in Indianapolis is a really good candidate for Coach of the Year right now.
Yeah, for
with
sure.
what he's been able to do with Gardner Minshew. So not only is the head coach calling the plays, he's under pressure and now, making changes with his coordinator situation. But to your point, that had been the anomaly for Seattle. Seattle, especially on third down, has struggled to protect Geno Smith. They've been one of the worst offensive lines, worst offenses in third down situations this season, and teams have found a way to pressure the quarterback. Now, they have had some that's been throughout the course of the season, so that's not necessarily indicative of where they are right now, and they had a good performance against Philadelphia. But there are places that can be taken advantage of. The question is, the Titans, and as a third down defense, there's a lot of things to like about the red zone defense this year, but the third down defense, and third and long in particular, has been a struggle. It's had, honestly, a little 2020 vibes. Not historically bad, but kind of like, oh my God, they're in 3rd and 12. This ought to be a layup, and then all of a sudden it's a 17-yard conversion.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested to see what happens on first, second down, especially if Pete Carroll sticks to who he is on offense, and that's running the football. Well, you saw the list of IR guys.
Yeah.
The only guy I didn't see on there was Z's.
Yeah.
And so the other linebackers are not. So now you're potentially having guys fill wrong gaps, see things wrong, and then that gets their running game going, and they may not have to throw the football. Maybe you want that to happen if you're the Titans, to be honest. I don't know about tomorrow. I think they'll be able to throw the ball, but we never know if they don't protect. So got to be able to run the football, so they're definitely going to try to run. So I'm interested to see how we do against the run with gap fits with guys who typically aren't out there. That's not to say they will or won't, but you got to see it in live in game, and it goes at a different speed.
OTIS. Otis Reese.
Otis Reese.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good athlete, but he hasn't been out there.
Sure, and they added a practice squad linebacker from Houston this week, who I think that was a transaction that was made on Wednesday, as they've been working through players and putting them on IR and things like that.
And he's at least played some.
Guys like
Yes.
Marlon Davidson, who will be seeing more time, who has played here, who's now been here for a little while, has had the opportunity to kind of learn and understand how they coach things and kind of settle in a little bit. So, as we talk about, it's got a little preseason vibes to it for if the Titans. The Seahawks have something to play for, but there are position groups that you have so many questions about, because it's not just like, I know people are talking about draft picks and stuff like that, and you want the best possible draft pick, but you have to have depth. This team has struggled as much with depth as it has with top-line players or hitting on draft picks and some difficulties in free agency over the course of the last, we'll call it 4 years, basically. But they have to find out about guys that can operate in serviceable roles for them, because Kyle Pecco is on his second stint here and was a viable player for them for a good stretch of football and found ways to make plays for them. Now he's on injured reserve as well now, but you never know where you might find the next guy like that.
I'll try to go and find as many things as I can that the other teams' writers have written about them, and I'll listen to some of their podcasts. And one of the biggest things they talked about was the Titans' defense. They're essentially like 30th in plays running against, like the 30th
Most.
the most, yes, and like in a bad way.
Yeah.
And also just in drive time allowed. The other teams just hold the ball against them. And it goes back a lot, Buck, to that third down difficulty you're talking about. They've had difficulty with 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and more than 10, and it still seems like they struggle to get off the field, although they've stiffened in the red zone. But the other teams just get long runs in, between 20 to 20.
It's crazy because they keep letting teams get to the red zone, and then they're the best red zone defense in football.
Yeah.
It's wild. And it's easier to play defense inside of the 20. We understand how much harder it is for offenses to operate. There's not as much space. It's tougher to operate your passing game, all these different things. And Seattle, we talked about, it's been a theme this year, don't be the team that the other team's struggling unit or struggling situation gets right against. Seattle has struggled to sustain drives throughout the course of the season. They've found more success as of late, but leaning on their running game, which Pete Carroll has wanted to do traditionally, has not been as viable because Kenneth Walker has been in and out of the lineup throughout the course of the season. Now, again, as we talk about the Titans running the football well in spurts and unable to find consistency, I think Seattle's kind of been in that same kind of vibe, which is why they're 500 right now and still alive in postseason contention. There's still wild card positions for the Seahawks to play for in the NFC, but those are things that you can try and take advantage of, or places that other teams have tried to take advantage of, because as we talk about all the time, the cliche is it's a copycat league.
Well, Seattle has one 100-yard game by a back this year. Kenneth Walker has one. They've one 100-yard back performance this year. The Titans gave up 126 to Devin Singletary last week. They had no answers for him. And I don't know how much of that was gap accountability and how much was guys just missed a lot of tackles, too. It seemed like a mix of everything.
Yeah, probably was. But if they're watching that tape, I guarantee you they think we're going to run the football. We're going to run the football until we can't. Then we have options there if we need to throw. So I think they're going to play it safe. I think this is going to be a muddy game, as Buck mentioned earlier. And, you're going to see who can be the toughest mentally to stop the run and then force them to pass and get after them in the passing situations. So right now you have to lean towards the Seahawks. If you're talking about offensive line play, that's just, man, I have no faith in that at all.
Well, and that's
until they tell me and show me that they are.
Oh, that's what the league is, right, Blaine?
Yeah.
That's one of the, we talked about Steichen earlier. The thing that's made Shane Steichen and the Colts viable, and what made them viable in Philadelphia, is they wouldn't overcomplicate things. They just keep running the ball if running the ball was working in certain moments, and keep running the same plays in certain moments, because until you stop that, I'm going to continue to do it. And when you do that, I'll look for an answer, and we'll find ways to adapt and things like that. But it's not always about being the most megamind play caller and things like that. Sometimes it's just sticking with your bread and butter if that's the thing that's working at the time. So for Seattle, that would be a viable matchup, because, Blaine, it's not just the Texans last week. It was the Steelers a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago. Yeah. The Colts earlier in the season. When this team has not had all its parts available, they have shown that you can run the football on them, and that's been pretty consistent throughout the course of the year, whether that's been Tart, whether that's been Simmons, and now both are unavailable for different reasons.
Well, you guys have talked about basically up front on both sides in the trenches for what the Titans want to do. I mean, nothing is going to work today if they don't get better play from the offensive line. And I started looking at Seattle, again, what they do up front defensively. They've got 7 guys with at least 3 sacks. 7 guys. So this is like the old Dean Pease era of the Titans, where Kevin Byard would get 2, and each linebacker would get 2 or 3, and the guys up front would each have 3 or 4. Then you'd have Landry maybe with 10, but they have had a lot of luck. And it's funny, Boye Mafe is the guy that Coach Mack on this week said that guy's a dog. He hasn't had a sack in a few weeks, so I'm sure he's licking his chops to try to get back in the count. But they're
licking their chops when they watch the tape.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're all licking their chops.
That's been the case.
I'm good. I'm a 2-sack deal, man. How many you think you going to get?
That's
what I'm telling you.
It's one of those. Arden Key and Jeff Simmons talking about a competition in the locker room about who's getting more sacks, like guys pushing each other. That's kind of weak. It is. That's absolutely. Well, and it's disappointing, because
it is.
You thought, or at least, Blaine, Miami wasn't a perfect performance for them as an offensive line group, but they had put together a couple of games where you felt like, all right, maybe they're getting more time together. Mm-hmm. They have been available together. Those reps matter as an offensive line group, the communication, all the little things that, people tend to let by when you or ignore when you give up a 7-sack performance and things like that. And so you thought, okay, maybe there is incremental progress being made. And there are players that still have limitations, whether Jalen Duncan can continue to improve upon that, can learn valuable lessons from moments like these. Dylan Radins, I think, is in a different kind of a situation, whether that's through his fault, whether that's injury, whether that's the decisions made around him by the coaching staff, as we've talked about before. But there, and then, to your point about Skoronski, it is so hard for rookie offensive linemen just generally Like you see that all around the league. Some of the guys who are now the best players in the sport. Andrew Thomas, and I know he's missed a lot of time for the Giants this year. But that, like, he was one of the worst tackles in football, and New York is a different kind of media environment coming into the league, and was looked at as a top overall pick as a guy who couldn't play. And then all of a sudden he's, one of these $25 million players a couple of years later, because it just takes time to develop. And especially with how offensive line, where the best athletes are going is to play defensive line, because it's far more glamorous if you're that kind of size, speed, and shape, typically. So you're seeing the effects of that. You're seeing the effects of injury. There's not a lot of teams. There's probably, I don't know, what would you say, Blaine? There's probably, or either of you guys, like, there's probably 12 to 13 teams that feel good about their offensive line at any point coming into the year, and there's probably maybe 7 or 8 that know they have a good offensive line group coming into the year. And by December, we're talking about much different situations across the league, because that's just the nature of how this extended season has gone.
After that 7th sack, though, I was real curious. I was watching Andre Dillard on the sideline, and I was like, they may put him back in. That is almost impossible. He has to get hurt. Duggan has to get hurt for them to put him in there.
Yeah, I don't think they want anything to do with that anymore.
And think about that.
He was offensive lineman, the way that they messed around and tried to find out this year if he could be. But I think for Dillard, that's one of those, like Todd Downing's press conference last year, or the locker room clean-out day press conference last year with Mike Vrabel, where we ask about coaching staff changes specifically around Todd Downing, and he says, well, we'll take the rest of the week and evaluate that.
Right.
That's at about noon, and then about 4 p.m. there's a release in my email saying that significant coaching staff changes have been made, and Todd Downing, the organization has parted ways with Todd Downing. So that's basically how I expect the end-of-season press conference around Andre Dillard questions to go.
Oh, man. Hey, I'll be utilizing him if I can at some point in time. Somebody gets hurt.
Find something for him to do.
They got to put him out there.
Well, they're just the bodies have, like,
Tight end.
Anybody. Anybody.
They're bringing
that just
up.
shows you how hard it is to evaluate, too, by the way.
Oh, sure.
This guy, athletically, when you watch him, that's why I said there's another component to every player, and that's their mental capacity, to, like, how tough they are, how smart they are in the game. And then that's how you miss on a guy with this kind of athleticism. There was a reason why he wasn't playing. You want to know why he wasn't playing with the Eagles, who have a really good line, but also a great O-line coach.
Yeah.
So you go, well, I can fix him. See, and this is what they talk. I see his athleticism. We can fix him. With our coaching, we can help him get to where he needs to be. And unfortunately, he just didn't. Maybe he didn't buy into the coaching. He thought he knew better, because it wasn't working. So you had to start. Desperation seeps in. You start saying, I need to do something else. Regardless if you believe in what they're teaching or what you're doing, you're going to try it. And I felt like he never even tried.
That they had a quicker trigger on him than they did Dennis Daly, than anybody. I mean, truly, than anybody. Like that tells you a lot, and that talking to people, Blaine, I know you obviously having spent time with the Eagles organization, but like around the combine and stuff like that, when these deals are being discussed, and Greg Cosell spends a lot of time. He's based in Philadelphia. He speaks with a lot of people at the Eagles organization. We talked about him in the free agency period, and competitive toughness with Andre Dillard has always been a bit of a theme since he's been in the league, or at least that's been a bit of the book on him. We didn't know that coming in from personal experience. The coaching staff certainly would tell you, probably, or maybe in an honest moment would tell you their own experiences, but that seemed to be the way that it's kind of played out. And you hate that, because they have had success stories. Azeez Al-Shaair has played solid football for them throughout the course of the year. And while they're looking at a lot of different pieces in the secondary, Sean Murphy-Bunting, I think, is a viable guy to kind of to think about bringing back as you look at a lot of young players are going to be coming in. That's a guy who's seen a lot of football, who's been in a lot of different roles, and is willing to do a lot of different things. So like we kind of circling back to the theme of earlier, there are dudes that can help you on next year's football team. These next 3 games is when you find out who actually is going to matter that way.
Yeah, some of the guys, I like them, but I don't love them. So it's kind of like the NWI. If we can get him for the right price, I'll bring him back. And that's where I'm at with Bunting too. I just, he has an injury history, not just this year. I'm talking about if you go look at his history of playing with Tampa Bay, and he underperforms to me. I want to get more out of a long, lengthy corner. I saw him get beat way too many more times.
Yeah.
And then I think. G's is a solid player, but he's got to be surrounded by some really good players to really ignite what he could potentially be in this league. And so I'm not sure that's the way to go or not, especially in free agency where money's going to count a lot. I know Rand has a good relationship with him, I'm assuming, since he came from San Francisco. Good, solid player, but he's not better than David Long. I'm sorry. I'm going to still always compare whoever you put in that spot to David Long, and he's not better than him.
Yeah,
he's not.
Well, we found out why a lot of these guys were depth guys in their previous roles.
He's been durable,
and has tried to play through a variety of different things this year, and to an extent that the availability with this team is not something that you can't turn your nose up at it for a variety of different reasons. But I think that to your point, Blaine, they're not going to spend all of the money that they have. People see, $86 million in cap space and think, okay, well, we're going to be able to spend on whoever we want in the offseason. That's not the way that smart teams go about it. You've got to be judicious with it. The offensive line, free agency pool is always a dangerous proposition. You've just found that out. You've just found that out.
They're not letting them out there.
Because you understand, Dillard, Philadelphia wouldn't move Dillard at the trade deadline because just a body that knew their system that could come in and play a little bit.
Yep.
Just a little bit. That's where the league is with offensive line play. So there's a lot of very important decisions that have to be made, and we're getting closer to the point where
for the right price, though, I'm bringing Z's back, but I'm not breaking the bank for sure. No way.
All right, we will break the bank in this last segment because we're going to have one more for you. Then we'll hand it over to Titans Countdown. Remember, while you were out and about here today, today's broadcast brought to you in part by SA Recycling. SA Recycling reminds you to be a good fan this game day. Look for recycle bins in and around Nissan Stadium, as well as the SA Recycling Razor. And, of course, this program on Christmas Eve and every day brought to you by Lee Company. Lee Company, all you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com.
Kirby trying to
Welcome back into the League Company Countdown to Kickoff. A beautiful sunny day in downtown Nashville. Would love to have you come and join us. Watch some Titans football as these Seahawks have flown 2,400 miles on a short week to play your Tennessee Titans today. Got a nice contingent of the 12th man crew from Seattle here. Hello to everybody who is visiting from Seattle as well. Hello to our friends at League Company. League Company, all you need. Visit them online at leaguecompany.com. We have inactives courtesy of one Jimmy Wyatt. Just as we all thought, Will Levis will be inactive today. Kyle Phillips, who is battling, I guess, a hamstring, inactive. Trayvon Wesco, inactive. Daniel Brunskill, inactive. TK McClendon, inactive. SMB and Kayvon Wallace, we were both told, I guess, by Mike Vrabel on Friday they would be inactive, Buck. But that is the list, Buck and Blaine, for today.
All right. So Ryan Tannehill at quarterback, which we had a pretty good feeling about all week long, and obviously they made him questionable. Will Levis on Friday made the determination yesterday, or if not on Friday, that he wasn't going to be able to go. Ryan Tannehill's been working with the ones since Levis experienced that injury, so he's had that throughout the course of the week and working with a lot of different pieces and parts. I guess the way to look at it is the guys who will play today, and you're going to see a lot of names that you're probably unfamiliar with, have at least been practicing all week, because there were 14 players on Wednesday who play meaningful snaps for this team that did not practice, and there were 12 players on Thursday that did not practice. So the guys at least have been going through the motions, getting the reps throughout the course of the week, and we'll see whether they're able to put it together today or not. But it is a list of a lengthy list of familiar faces that will not be available.
Who's starting at linebacker? Was G's?
Otis,
that's what you said?
Yeah.
Otis.
Otis Reese.
He got released, right?
Yes, and then brought back on the practice
after he
squad.
Gave up the punt block against the Saints.
Yes. Yeah, many moons ago, yes.
First game.
Yes.
This was some time ago. So, yeah, they I mean, listen, Mickey.
Good athlete, though. Good athlete. I don't know how much he'll know his assignments and everything. If he can hit that, man, it may be an opportunity for him to solidify that he could be a backup-type player here and potentially a starter, because he has that kind of athleticism. Wasn't this guy a converted safety?
Yes.
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 So he's got the speed, he's got the length, he's got the physicality, and he has the athleticism. I was really impressed with him in training camp, and I wasn't surprised that he actually made the team. Unfortunately, he made a boo-boo in the first game. It probably cost him the game, but there was other things too as well. But when you're a young player, you can't make those mistakes. So we shall see if he can be consistent, which is really hard to do when you're a young player.
Yeah, and I know they, as you mentioned, Blaine, they loved the effort and the energy that he brought and the versatility that he brought throughout the course of training camp, and made a bit of a name for himself as one of these preseason guys that I think a lot of Titans fans were familiar with during the summer. So, if you're going to make mistakes, make them at 100 miles an hour. Show them that you're at least willing to mix it up out there on tape, and that you're going to continue to not make the same mistakes.
Kayla Anderson, never a mistake when she checks in from the field. Kayla, I would imagine it's nice and warm down there. Probably no wind. I would imagine you're just down there enjoying the sunshine right now.
Well, I mean, you're about right. I feel like I'm on a tropical getaway for the holidays, guys. For real, it is beautiful down here. Not trying to make you guys jealous, but, yeah, I had to take off my coat. And you were mentioning, usually I give you a little bit report in terms of the winds. Barely anything right now. Sun is out, and it is weird seeing a lot of new faces down here in terms of what I've seen at the DB position warming up. It's almost like I got to look at my roster and got to look at faces and be like, okay, that's him. So you guys were mentioning that, just a lot of new faces there, and that's certainly true here, just seeing them even warm up down here.
So we gave the Titans inactives, Kayla, for the Seahawks: D. Eskridge, Devin Witherspoon, Jamal Adams, Frank Clark, McClendon Curtis, Raekwon O'Neal, and Miles Adams. The Jamal Adams deal there has been such an odd thing. Was inactive last week, just went home. Pete Carroll has actually, protected him and has really stood by him through this process, but that's been a mess, and there's a lot of talk in Seattle like this will be the last that they see of him this year, even with a couple of big years financially left on his contract.
Yeah, and we've seen this from Pete Carroll before with certain players. Even, if you look at it, even with a guy like Russ Wilson, where once he left, you kind of saw there maybe were some torn threads there. Pete, by the way, who was already out here signing autographs for all the 12s that are down here right now.
But I think it's a weird situation indeed, and like sitting at home, like not even at the stadium. There's definitely some backstory to that. I think weird to see that this could be the last year that they're together in terms of the Seahawks and Adams. But hey, you look at what Love did for them last week.
Yeah.
In that big game against the Eagles. I mean, he made the game-winning interception. So I think they're fine with what they have right now. And we see it all around the league sometimes, right? And coaches got to be coaches. They've got to kind of protect their players while they're on the team. And it seems that that's kind of what Pete Carroll's doing here.
Well, the ever youthful Pete Carroll down there signing autographs. Kayla, enjoy your sunshine and your no wind down on the field. If anything huge happens, then check back in with us.
And I will say, I did have a mishap, guys. I was down here, and they were kicking Seahawks were down, kicking like some long field goals, and I'm under and get kicked in the head with the ball. But you know what?
Oh.
I'm not in concussion protocol. I've had worse things in my life happen, y'all. I've had worse things. But I did want to be transparent with you guys.
Well, you've survived this week better than a lot of the players that you cover, Kayla. We will mark you safe, as Buck said, hit on the field. Ain't that a kick in the head? Well, be safe down there for the rest of the show.
Thanks, you guys.
All right. Kayla Anderson is down there getting hazard
keep
pay.
her from the show.
No, she just powered through it. She got her sparkly boots on today, and she just
That gave her superpower.
Get out the way real quick. That happened to the sideline reporter for CBS when we were in London, not this most recent time, but in 2018, and I can't remember what her name was, but Brett Kern let one loose.
Oh, no.
And she was doing a sideline hit, and then she was very soon hit by said punt on the sideline on camera. It was an unfortunate situation. She was okay, though. Powered through.
On the sidelines in her sideline hit.
Did you laugh, Buck? Did you laugh?
When I saw the clip.
Oh.
I didn't see it live.
Right, okay.
Once I knew that everybody was okay, then I laughed.
No, those balls can really, seriously.
Yeah, they can do some damage.
They can really, they can't give you a concussion.
Without
especially
protection.
if you don't see them, oh, my gosh.
And this was a full, head jerk type of situation.
It could be really serious.
Yeah, absolutely.
What could be really serious today is the Titans need to get going on offense. Our man Joey Bananas, who produces this show and produces Blaine and Mickey.
Joey Bananas.
Yeah, that's Joey Bananas.
Yeah, we call him Bananas.
Joey Bananas. He gave Blaine the worst flashback ever.
What?
He brought something back from the worst team that Blaine ever played on. Joey Bananas said, hey, man, I was perusing the internet and I discovered this stat. We said, what do you got? He said, this is the Titans' lowest yards per game since 1994. And Blaine goes, I was on that team. That's the worst team I've ever been on. Bud Adams traded everybody away. Warren Moon, everybody.
I was thankful that he traded everybody away. Then that way I knew I was going to make the roster.
Blaine was like the Will Smith meme where he's just standing in Uncle
Looking
Phil's
around.
house and everybody's gone. Yeah,
So
everybody was gone.
1994, how many years was that? That was
I was going into my second year.
your second year.
Yeah,
okay.
So my rookie year, he
Oh,
told
my God.
everybody going into the season in training camp that this would be your last year here. And I thought, man, I'm a rookie. You going to cut me? And he was talking to the vets. You know,
Yeah.
I had no idea what he
Sure.
was talking about because we had Warren Moon, Sean Jones, William Fuller, Webster Slaughter, Haywood Jeffries, all those guys, Ernest Givens, great players. And he's like, this is it. We have the team to win. And if we don't go to Super Bowl, this team will be dismantled. He told us that's in training camp.
Just at the end. Yeah, they were just at the end.
Yeah, so we didn't make it, and he swiped everybody off that team, and we had guys like Billy Joe Tolliver as our starter, Cody Carlson, and Bucky Richardson as our quarterbacks.
You ever heard any of those guys?
I'm learning them for the first time.
No. I thought Bucky was pretty good. He went to A&M. But, that was a tough – I think we only won 2 games.
2-14. I wrote it down.
And that was it. That's where the hitman had arisen.
Yeah, that's
No, because it had you. I mean, you
that's
had to
trial
have
by
pride.
fire type of situation.
Right, you had to learn it on the go, on the fly, and then you got to see who were your true teammates who were going to play hard all the way to the end because we sucked. I mean, some guys were out there, hey, man, do you know that the eye in the sky, they see this on TV, man, you up here loafing. So I was getting lit because I'm never going to turn on the tape and feel like I didn't give all I got.
Well, and
that's it.
That's real. And I don't know how much I don't want to go back and relook at old comments, but Jeff Simmons made a similar comment in the locker room in London about, we're going to find out guys who want to be here. This was after they lost to the Ravens and things.
I thought that was a little early to say that, though. It's timings and everything.
Well, and
the season was still out there. You could still win.
It was only week 6.
Right, that's early.
For at that point, and things did look a bit bleak, and that was the game that they benched Andre Dillard, and you thought that viability-wise, all right, there may be some flaws that may hinder them seriously here, right? But so but that Jeff was talking about it that early, I also think is kind of worth paying attention to, though, Blaine, like that he felt the need to bring it up that early, whether right, wrong, indifferent, that he was noticing something.
Was he noticing
that led
something
him
with Tart?
Well,
maybe?
that's
People
where
say,
a lot of people will draw conclusions. I don't know that to be specific.
Yeah.
I know they always got along pretty well.
Yeah.
So
So why couldn't he just tell him in his face while he's in the meeting room? Why would he have to go out publicly and say that?
And that's a different question.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to. He's standing there right there in the meeting with him every day when they're walking out like, hey, man, we got to get more. So that's why I don't believe this territory.
Yep.
I don't believe it.
Yeah.
I think he's talking universally to everybody.
More a generalized statement than a pointed statement, you're saying.
Yeah, I would say.
Because he does seem like the type of guy who would just go to your locker and go, hey, man.
He can talk to him as soon as he walk out of the meeting room.
Right.
Just D-line.
Yeah.
And first of all,
you would hope.
First of all, he should be the type that is going to run to the ball, and that's the coach's job. But at the final step, the leader on that team, you got to say something to him.
Yeah.
As much has been made, especially this week. This is all new to Mike Vrabel and to a Mike Vrabel team not coaching for the postseason. The earliest they've been eliminated, and I've seen several people say this. This is the only time a Mike Vrabel team has not competed for the playoffs down to the last day of the season, even.
Yeah, Jacksonville last year. I mean, it was crazy. That was what made that slide so wild. Is because they were cooking. They'd swept the Colts. They were 7-3. We didn't think that they were the best football team in the world when all that started to happen post Green Bay, but that they were still in it with the opportunity, and that it was a game. Like they had an opportunity to win that game in Jacksonville, and the Dobbs, was it an incompletion? Was it a fumble that was lost and recovered for a touchdown? Like the margin for error for them was still that thin, even as they were clearly showing some flaws that might not allow them to go very far in the postseason, right? But, yeah, this is new territory, and this is – I mean, we're going to find out a lot about not just the players we're talking about evaluating, but the coaching staff. That's absolutely a real thing. This is uncharted territory, and now with the promise of a new quarterback shouldn't just be like a rookie quarterback that gives you kind of new life shouldn't be a hall passer, shouldn't be viewed as that. Like this is about how you handle everybody's situation, including the development of the young quarterback, who, of course, for the purpose of today, not starting, it'll be Ryan Tannehill. But this is a critical part of where this franchise is in like the NFL life cycle, and they've got to get a lot of things right this offseason and kind of figure out who they want to be moving forward. To be honest with you.
Well, it goes back to Blaine's eye in the sky don't lie. I mean, you're trying out for this team, you're trying out for 31 other teams. When you take the field, even Coach Mack says every day's an audition.
Yeah, I don't get that. I don't know if the fans really grasp. This is not like college. These guys are actually playing for their livelihood. This is what they do for a living. And so, to me, even the Tierra Tart stuff, like I really don't believe you have to say something publicly about a player. Mm-hmm. Guess what? Eventually, the coach will take him out. It's not my job to make you run and hustle as a leader. That doesn't make sense to me, because you better do it or you won't get paid.
Hopkins said that this week.
You won't get paid. So, I don't understand this whole, he said it to get people fired. Really? Like, if you're not fired up, you won't be long in this league. Sorry. And sometimes that'll get you cut. It doesn't even matter. So I believe that everybody has something to play for. And as I said before, this is how you lose games, is you play backups to see how they will play in front of the bright lights, see how they perform in a starting unit or going against starters in this league to see if they can be a viable starter at times, and then also they can be a depth piece. So that's what this is going on here to me. At the same time, with all these guys, I firmly believe Hooker would be playing. I think Simmons would play at some point. Mm-hmm. I don't think they would be on IR. So not to say that they aren't nicked up but I think they would try to fight through, maybe not this
Oh,
game,
for
but-
sure. Guys like NWI, like guys who are
Well, I didn't know
perpetually
NWI.
available.
You said it was his hand, so I don't know how much you can catch. So I don't know the extent of the injury.
Yeah.
But so I just guys are going to be fired up because they have no choice. And guess what? Some guys are fired up for different reasons. Tannehill to show I can be a starter in this league.
Oh, yeah.
A backup guy to say I can show I can be on this roster, or I can be a starter in this league. So there's a lot of motivation all over the place that you want to look for it as an individual player. There's there. So for somebody to come out and say that, they don't have anything public. Oh, they absolutely
That's nonsense.
do.
Yeah. I
they
mean,
absolutely do.
it's just like, do you have a day that in whatever you do for a living, like however it is
You
that
can
you
have a bad day.
make your money, provide for your family, whatever it is, like this is what these guys, coaches, players, personnel people, like everybody's sweating it out at 5-9, right? And this is why, despite however fans might feel about draft position and things like that, like the objective for the organization is to go out there and win a football game, even if the parts that they have look the way that they do right now.
Yeah.
I was looking at everybody's. I'll go around and read different predictions of the game, and there are a handful of people actually pick the Titans to win, and they have no other rationale other than, well, this just seems like one of those Mike Vrabel specials where they're super undermanned and a couple things go their way, and they try a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Mike Vrabel special today. You guys ready to predict something like that?
I've already seen the unbelievable in Miami this year.
Maybe that was all the special magic.
I think you got a little Mike Vrabel miracle in Miami this year. And listen, they played well. Tyreek Hill missed some time. Like, things happened in that game. Football happened in that game that allowed them to capitalize and be in the right position. And Will Levis making good strides in that. And all of that was real to an extent, but. It's a different circumstance. Like, I know they were without Jeff in Miami, but they're without a lot more people today.
Oh my gosh,
a lot more. And for what it's worth, Joseph sent the Seahawks inactives to our group text. Like, Devin Witherspoon is not going to play. I know Jamal,
my number one corner in the draft.
Oh,
yep.
I mean, he has been phenomenal when he's been out there this year. We know what's going on with Jamal Adams and his situation. Frank Clark is missing time. Raekwon O'Neal and D. Eskridge, guys like that. So, like, the Seahawks are missing some guys, too. It's December football for everybody. It's just Seattle's in a different situation. They've got actual postseason contention on the line, and for the Titans, it's a little bit – it appears to be, based on their personnel decisions, it appears to be a different approach.
All right, before I ask you who or exactly what you're watching today, I have two stats that I gave this week on the Blaine and Mickey show. The ways that you can 100% beat the Seahawks with a large sample size. The Seahawks are 0-6 when scoring under 20 points. 0-6, under 20 points.
Okay.
So that's a milestone. If you're Mike Vrabel, you say got to hold them to under 20 points. The Seahawks are 6-0 when rushing for 100 or more yards as a team. They only have one back who has a 100-yard game, but as a team, they've cobbled together some 100-yard games. And, Blaine, as you said earlier, if I'm them, when I get off the bus, I'm thinking we're about to run the football today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think for the Titans defense, again, it's tough to kind of evaluate what this is going to look like given just how many critical parts they're going to be without today. Like, we know that they have been an incredible red zone defense. We know that they've struggled on 3rd and long and things like that, but I'm not sure what to make of it. I'm curious to see what these guys look like against a legitimate NFL passing.
All right, about 15 seconds or so each because we got a minute left. Who, exactly what are you watching today on this Christmas Eve game?
Ryan Tannehill. It's probably his last start at Nissan Stadium for his career as a Titan. He's done a lot of good things here for this organization. I know it didn't end the way that he or the fans wanted it to, but that alone is a big storyline today.
D-line complementing the secondary. How much does that work and play in hand into this game? Because D-line to me has to play their best game all season. Get after the quarterback, help out the secondary. They don't. They'll be exposed. These receivers are really good.
Yeah, and like we said, those three dudes, and they're all different. And Noah Fant, they throw a lot at you when they're throwing a lot at you. All right, it's time for us to get out of here. For me, does the offense have a plan B today, and can they be moderately consistent? Not just a nice opening drive and then a really long lull. Can they keep some things going all day long? Do they have a plan B to just running it up the middle a lot? We will all find out. We will all get our Christmas gifts or coal in our stocking. We'll all know, though. Coming up today at noon, stick around to the Zone all day. We got you covered for the game and what's coming up afterwards and everything else. Merry Christmas, everybody.
And tighten up.